Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So it looks like Sony has a new job listing where they're going to put their games on everything. Let's read this article. This comes from My Nintendo News, and this is old news, but I wanted to talk about franchises that I hope come to the Nintendo Switch and obviously Xbox. And I picked franchises that make sense because they're either dead or it seems like Sony doesn't care about, and it'd be easy money for Sony to just put it on other systems. All right, so let's read this article real quick. It says, according to a newly published job listing, Sony Interactive Entertainment is seeking to hire a senior director for multi-platform and account management. The job description states that whoever is brought on board will be responsible for shaping and executing the global commercial strategy for PlayStation Studios software titles across all digital platforms beyond PlayStation hardware, including Steam, Epic Games Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. Sony has already been experimenting with multi-platform releases beyond PC, as both Patapon 1 and 2, Replay, and Everybody's Golf, Hot Shots, are Sony-owned IP that were recently licensed to Bandai Namco to publish on Switch. Furthermore, Sony themselves have even published their own Switch games, including Lego Horizon Adventures. Based on the new job listing, it looks like Sony is far from done with the idea of putting their games on other platforms. Now, I know a lot of fanboys are raging about this. I am a Sony guy for the most part, even though I made a Switch channel. I was originally a Nintendo fanboy until they became WAG controlled with the Wii. They lost me with the Wii. I hated motion controls. I was hoping for like a comparable console to, what was it at the time, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Instead, they went sideways and they decided to try motion controls. But it's a good thing they did that, because I don't think they'd be as big of a powerhouse as they are in the gaming industry now if they didn't do that. So, hindsight 2020. Anyway, so with this news, there are about, I want to say 10 franchises that I would love to see from Sony. We'll do an Xbox one separately because Xbox is bringing their games to every platform too. Franchises from Sony that I want to see come to the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Switch 3 in the future. All right, let's get this started. So the first franchise I would love to see is the Sly Cooper series. The Sly Cooper series is probably one of the best platformers that you can possibly imagine made by Sony. It feels so good. It feels like one of Nintendo's genius developing teams have made it. It feels like the Donkey Kong devs made it, or the Super Mario Odyssey team made it. It feels so good, even to today's standards. Like if you go play, I believe they re-released the first and second game on the PlayStation 5 digitally. If you go play those, it feels like it was made a couple of years ago. It doesn't feel like it was made way back in the PS2 generation. Those games feel fantastic, and they still hold up to today. And since Sony doesn't really seem to care about that franchise by making continuous new games, they did give it a fourth entry and tried to test the waters, but I think they waited too long. So it would be a great way to test the waters again, revitalize the franchise, and get a whole new fan base with the Switch and Nintendo fans by bringing Sly Cooper 1 through 4 onto the Nintendo Switch. I think or the Switch 2. I feel like that would be a huge income source, and bring it to the Xbox obviously, but we're talking about the Switch right now. I feel like that'd be an easy win. And then if they decide to make another one because the hype level has been brought back up, everybody's aware of it, it's trending, you put the new one on the PlayStation 5 only for now, and then a year or two later you put it on the Switch. I mean, you could literally make or revitalize old franchises, old IP, by leveraging other consoles or other storefronts. It's that simple. And I think that's what Microsoft has been trying to do with Halo and everything, and Gears. They're trying to use the PlayStation fan base for Gears, hype the game up to dial it up to 11, and then release the new one on Xbox exclusively for the time being, unless they decide to do it day and date. And then they'll try to get some traffic over on Xbox. That's actually pretty clever, and I'm curious if that'll work out. All right, the next franchise is Jak and Daxter, this franchise. Now, I only played the third game in this franchise, but the game was freaking awesome. I did try out the first game on a demo disc a long time ago, But the writing, the world atmosphere, the free roaming, it was super fun. I really liked it. I wanted to go back and play the first 2 games. I just never got around to it. And they do have a collection of this, but this is another franchise where you could totally revive by bringing it to the Nintendo Switch 2. And of course, Xbox. I mean, the Switch is like the platform king and RPG king. Like, bring any platformer to the system, and it's going to sell bucket loads, especially if it's a Sony IP. It's like, holy crap, they're bringing Sony games to the Switch? I'm definitely buying that on my Nintendo Switch. That would be huge. All right, next up is the Uncharted series, 1 through 3. Maybe do 4 later, but for the start, I would do Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, put them on the Switch. Uncharted, I think, is probably Naughty Dog's best franchise. I really like Jak and Daxter. Not a big fan of The Last of Us. The first one was a 10 out of 10. I refused to play the second one because they killed the main character. Spoiler. But Uncharted. Uncharted is absolutely start to finish, especially the first 3 games. They're all 10 out of 10s. They're amazing. And I hope it has if they do that, I hope they include the multiplayer, because the multiplayer was super fun in all 3 games too. So Uncharted, it's basically like Tomb Raider, but with a dude and way more polished. So yeah, Uncharted should definitely come to the Switch. And if they ever decide to revive the franchise, well, now gave it a shot in the arm by putting it on Nintendo Switch. Why not? Number 4, the God of War games, the first 3, and the PSP ones. Not the new God of Wars, because I feel like Sony would save that for PC and their high-end system, the PlayStation 5, PS5 Pro. They could probably get the first 2 to work, but if they ever make a third one of the new God of War play style, I don't think the Switch might be able to run it. I don't know, the Switch 2. But for the first 3 games, they're already in a trilogy on the PS3. You just up-res it a little bit to make it look better and add in the PSP games. Although, if they do any of these games, they're going to sell them separately. They're never going to put them in a trilogy pack on the Nintendo systems. Maybe like way, way later after they've all been sold separately and the sales dip. Then they probably put them in a collection on a Nintendo Switch cartridge. I would prefer a collection, obviously, but I think they would sell them separately. Kind of like Microsoft is doing with Gears of War. Instead of doing like a trilogy pack, they're selling them one by one. And then they'll probably do a trilogy later. That way they can get more money. They can slowly introduce people to the games, because if they release a huge trilogy pack with all 3 games and then 4 and 5 of Gears of War, I feel like people would get burned out on it pretty quick. So it's a pretty smart thing to do with the PlayStation fan base. Anyway, so I feel like God of War 1 through 3 would be really freaking awesome on the Switch 2. Why not do it? Number 5, Twisted Metal series. Now this freaking franchise has been dead for a long time. There was a live service game in the works that got canceled, which kind of shocks me. And there was that, I forget what it's called, but there was that launch game that was basically, it should have been Twisted Metal on the PlayStation 5, and nobody pre-ordered it, so they ended up putting it in PS Plus, and still nobody played it. I forget what it's called. That's how irrelevant the game was. Pretty sure it's dead now, but I guarantee you if that was a Twisted Metal game, it probably would have done a heck of a lot better. So what better way to revive Twisted Metal than by bringing it to the Nintendo Switch? You could bring the old PS1 games to the Switch. You could bring the PS2 games, which I believe was Twisted Metal Black, I think was the best one on the PS2. You could bring the PS3 one with the insanely difficult controls. I remember trying to play that, and the controls are so weird. And it was cool though, because it had like the Sweet Tooth mech in the game, like your ice cream truck could turn into a mech. That was freaking awesome. In fact, I probably have the trailer playing with that in it. But yeah, Twisted Metal, it'd be a great way to revive the franchise. Like, why do it on your own hardware when you can leverage other consoles, especially Nintendo, because the Nintendo fan base eats everything up. They love, like, Donkey Kong is now super relevant again, when, in my opinion, nobody really cared about Donkey Kong for the longest time. And they did when what was it? Tropical Freeze came out. It's like, oh, Donkey Kong's back. This is awesome. But since then, it's been kind of hush hush. But now they have a huge Donkey Kong 10 out of 10 game. He's now up there with Link and Mario, in my opinion. Anyway, Twisted Metal. Now number 6. Since this franchise costs so much to make games off of and use the IP, that is the Spider-Man games. So Spider-Man 1, start with the first game. That way you don't anger the fanboys. I think fanboys just need to stop. Like, who cares? Play what system you want to play on. Use whatever ecosystem you want to use. And just enjoy your games. Quit trying to gatekeep. Quit trying to justify your purchase. It's just, who cares at this point? Okay? And I'm a Sony guy. Like, I play most of my games on my PlayStation 5. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Anyway, so the first Spider-Man game, in my opinion, is probably the best one because I think the story is better, the pacing is better, the villains are better. The second one, it played better, and it had Miles Morales and Venom in it. If you could play as Venom throughout the whole game, then 2 would be the best one by a landslide. Miles is more interesting to play as because he has more different powers. He's like electric powers. He can go invisible. Than the original Spider-Man, but overall the story and everything in the first game to me was much better. Plus it was the first one, so I would just say start with the first one. If it does really, really well, then port over Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 later. It should definitely work on the Switch. They could dumb it down if they have to. Now, one of my favorite franchises that Sony has is the Ratchet and Clank series. It is essentially a third-person Mega Man game, or at least the closest we'll ever get to the OG Mega Man, not Mega Man Legends, because Legends is totally different. It's the closest thing we'll ever get to probably a Mega Man game, if you think about it. The weapons are super awesome. Like, you have Mr. Zarkon, the little robot that helps you. You got the disco ball, which works on bosses and makes them dance for a few seconds. The weapons in the game are like the best part of the whole thing. It sucks that the newest one was so short. I mean, you can get a platinum with like 15 hours. The replayability of that one is not that great. That's why I would prefer the first 3 games and the I forget which one it was called on the PlayStation 3. I think it was the first one where you can manipulate time and had the time mechanic. And I don't know how they got that to work because some of those puzzles were insane. I feel like that one should definitely be on the Switch. In fact, you could just port that one. But the first 3 games are so damn good, story-wise, gameplay-wise. I would start with the first 3. Like, you can release them separately for $15-20 a piece. Heck, $10, because unless you're gonna like up-res them or something, because the first one looks terrible, but the second and third one I think look fine. Especially since they ported them over to the PS3 and they got a slight up-res. Anyway, Ratchet and Clank, I feel like that franchise would really excel on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I think it might reach some of the Nintendo IP levels of sales, like especially if they ported over a newer one, like the one from the PlayStation 5. That would be huge, although I don't think that's the best one to represent the franchise. In my opinion, the first one on the PS3 and the third game on the PS2, those are probably the best 2, in my opinion. So there is that. So that would be freaking awesome to get Ratchet and Clank on there. Number 8, Mod Nation Racers. This is a one-and-done game, but the customization and creation tools in this were unmatched. There's no game since this came out has even come close to the options that you could have in a create a character, a create a cart, anything. Like, you could literally make any single character you could possibly imagine using the tools in the game. I had like Mega Man, I had Ratchet and Clank, I had everybody, and they all looked pretty much identical to what they were supposed to look like in a chibi format. And the carts you could customize, the racetracks you could customize. Of course, everybody figured out how to cheat right away, so you could literally go forward, back up, and then it counted as winning the race. So there was a lot of glitches in the races, the official ones. So that's probably why they didn't make a second one. But if they ever brought this back with the user-generated content, I'd be so happy. Because for me, I love creating stuff, especially characters. And I would love either a sequel or just a re-release of Mod Nation Racers. Not necessarily on the Switch, but on anything. Mod Nation Racers was huge, and I'm shocked they haven't put that on PC. PC would eat that thing up, and they would play it forever. With mods and support and everything, it would be freaking amazing. So Mod Nation Racers, I would love to see on the Nintendo Switch 2. And unfortunately, Mario Kart World, not doing too well right now. So it might totally take over that too. Number 9. We're almost at the end here. Number 9 is the Infamous games. Just the first two. To me, the third one, even though it takes place in Seattle, which is where I'm from pretty much, I didn't really like the third game that much. It was too short. You could beat it in like one sitting. And compared to the first two, it was crap, man. Like the gameplay was okay, but the story and stuff, it was like, eh. To me, Infamous 1 and 2 are 10 out of 10 games. Those games should get a remaster and come to everything. Especially the Switch 2. What a great way to revitalize that franchise rather than to put it on the Switch 2. I mean, come on. The last game on this list, and it's not like the biggest game, I kind of went backwards here, and that's Gravity Rush. The Gravity Rush games were super unique and super fun. My only complaint with them is that they didn't have English voice acting. I feel like that's what hurt them really bad in that franchise. The controls were so unique and so different. Like, if they could tighten up the controls, polish them a little bit, and then release them on the Nintendo Switch, I feel like they'd do bangbusters. I mean, it was that unique of a franchise. It was really cool. I would love to see that come back. So anyway, those are 10 franchises that I would love to see on the Nintendo Switch 2 via the whatever the heck Sony's doing right now. And you know they're probably going to bring them to the Xbox as well. I mean, the whole reason this is happening is because games cost too much to make. And having them release on one platform, even their own, unless you're Nintendo where the games sell 10, 20, 30 million units, like look at Mario Kart 8 on the Nintendo Switch. What, isn't that like 60, 70 million units sold? That's insane. And because of the new one not being as good as that one, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 8's going to keep selling more than World. Like, that's crazy. It's like they had lightning in a bottle with 8. And the fact that it released on the Wii U and the Switch, whew, that's crazy. I think Donkey Kong will probably hit about 20, 30 million by the end of it, because it came out so early in the console's life. As the console sells more and more and we get more and more people with the system, I feel like Donkey Kong will be one of those games, evergreen games, that just sells forever, kind of like pretty much every Nintendo game. And then we'll just wait till the next Animal Crossing comes out. That's gonna be crazy. There's one more game I wanted to put on the Switch 2, and I think it's coming, and that's Stellar Blade. The main reason I want Stellar Blade on the Nintendo Switch 2 is because of the collaborations they could probably do with Nintendo. We're talking Samus stuff, we're talking Legend of Zelda, we're talking, heck, Animal Crossing, F-Zero. There's so many possibilities with that. I would love to see what they would do, what team-up items they would do, because they like to do collaborations, and Nintendo has some pretty cool stuff. So I would love to see a Zero Suit Samus, her normal suit. Imagine her normal suit Samus, the big, awesome orange and red suit, running around in Stellar Blade killing aliens and stuff. That would be freaking awesome. That'd be so cool. Anyway, sound off the comments below. What are some Sony franchises that you would like to see hit the Nintendo Switch 2? Or did I pretty much say all of them? Like, there's a couple I didn't say. Like, Horizon, I don't care about Horizon. The first game was good. I started the second game and got instantly turned off with all the dialogue and everything every 5 seconds. The newer God of War games are okay, but I prefer the old ones, and I feel like the old ones would do better on the Switch. And I don't really care for The Last of Us. You can't kill off main characters. It's stupid. I'm sorry. Anyway, sound off the comments below. I blabbered on long enough. Thank you for watching, and stay frosty.